Welcome to the Be the Light Crown Edition podcast. I'm Hanna Fray, your host and pageant queen extraordinaire. Fun fact, while most people are resistant to change, I'm excited by it. So this podcast is designed to allow me to be the light for others. By sharing my experiences across countless topics where I demolished my fears, prejudice, expectations, and rebuilt brick by brick. My hope is I can encourage you to seek knowledge, implement change, and above all, trust in God. So let's get to it. It's time for some you time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Be the Light Crown Edition podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something that we are all very familiar with, and that is social media. And while I could go in so many different directions with this, we're going to primarily focus on social media and its impact on mental health. And as we know, primarily negative impact to mental health, but we're going to focus on tips and tricks that you can implement to hopefully turn that around and allow social media to be for good. And there are so many good things and ways that we can utilize social media, and so we definitely want to focus on that. I want to start by, as I usually do, going into just a little bit of like history and a little bit of background with how I have approached social media. So everyone's story is a little bit different depending on how old you are, because that really dictates when the term social media and when these platforms even became available. I distinctly remember Facebook being a thing in high school, and I know that it was out for years before that, but it really wasn't. In my small town of Palmyra, Missouri, I think we had like 3,000 people in our town, like 70-ish in my graduating class. Okay, yes, very small. It really wasn't something that everyone was utilizing or talking about. And I am equally haunted by the memories that pop up from like 12, 15 years ago, back to when my very first few Facebook posts. And I don't know if y'all remember, but I think we were all doing this. We were utilizing the like post to timeline feature for like private messages. It's so cringe, like unbelievable. Sometimes I even like want to delete what I'm seeing, but I'm like, no, Hannah, it lives on in memory for a reason. But so yeah, it really wasn't. And I think too, it was primarily focused around like relationships and a way to just both solidify and also just share with the world who you were in a relationship with, and you know when that was happening. So that was kind of funny. So I got Facebook in high school. Definitely wasn't allowed to at first. I distinctly remember creating it from somebody else's computer. And like understandably, of course, my parents are just like, we don't know what it is. We don't know, what it's going to be for. I think that my mom created an account even before I did. Not really sure. So of course, created my account in secret, and so it was like never on it because smartphones weren't a thing. Like my first cell phone was definitely the little, I forget the name of it, but like the brick with like the buttons that you would text on. I had like 200 texts a month or some arbitrary limit. Good times, y'all. You don't even know. For those of you who are younger listening to this podcast, you cannot relate, and I feel sorry for you because there were some good times. So anyway, so that's Facebook. And then Instagram, I did look it up. It was released in 2010, but I kind of scrolled all the way back to my very first, yes, I did. I scrolled all the way back to my first Instagram post, and I posted initially in 2012. So that would have been my sophomore year of college. So I guess that's whenever I decided this was something that I needed. I was primarily using Facebook up until that point. And Instagram started as selfies. Okay. That's all I remember it for. I'm almost certain that like the stories thing wasn't a thing. It was literally just photos with captions, and it was just a way to like post a good photo of yourself, like proof of life, like I'm doing these fun things with these fun people. And it has really evolved from like albums, which we would take on our cameras and upload with the SD card, and like we'd upload all 100 photos into a single album on Facebook, and I still have these albums, some of them on my Facebook page. We were all guilty of this, staying up all night trying to decide the best caption and like whatever. Just so hilarious. It has evolved from that into a lot of different things. So a way to like communicate and stay in contact with folks that we have met long distance, even just thinking about the amazing opportunities I've had to travel internationally and even compete in pageants internationally, and like being able to stay in contact with those folks and really see what's still going on in their lives is just really cool. That's just really cool, y'all. That was not a concept that I even had, 15 years ago. So like, that's incredible. We're also utilizing it for, yes, there's still the selfies and whatnot, but primarily for like education, okay, resources, community. And then we have this aspect of influencers, which are kind of, depending on their niche, using one or all of those areas. So maybe they're primarily focused on education or resources, or maybe they're primarily just like posting selfies and promoting like good products, which I follow my fair share of, all the different niches. So like, to each their own. But that's really what it's evolved into. And for me, I don't think I had found myself relying on influencers and really deciding that that was even a way to capture education and a way to get more information on the things going on in my life personally until about like 2017, 2018. So, I mean, that's fairly recent, right? It really hasn't been, it feels like a lifetime because it's our current state, but it hasn't been that long that our society has shifted from selfies to self-help. Okay. So just that little bit of history, I thought that was kind of fun. Now I want to move into some like statistics about like mental health and social media, just to kind of level set, because I know that we all hear this term like social media isn't good for you. Okay, but why? You know what I mean? And I wanted to discuss this concept of a dopamine reward loop, because it's not just for social media. Like, this is something that you can apply to literally anything that prompts your body to release dopamine. And so this is kind of how folks, when they can be addicted to anything. There used to be this show, and I don't know if it's still on TV, where it was like My Crazy Addiction. Okay, and there were people who were addicted to like eating paint chips, or like eating their own hair, or like sleeping with stuffed animals. Like, there were all these crazy different addictions. Okay, what was the similarity? They all released dopamine, and it is proven that social media does the same thing. So we open up our phone, likely because we've received a notification. We read a comment that says something nice about us, or somebody likes a photo that we posted. We're instantly filled with like, oh, they liked it, right? They thought I looked good. And it kind of releases that dopamine, and then it feeds back to, I can't wait to go back to social media for that next notification. Okay, so it's this loop, which is kind of scary. And the next stat I have for you is 59% of teens experience cyberbullying. And that study in particular didn't study adults, and I wonder if they even would. But like, we all know, we've all been in the groups, okay, where the adults, the folks who should be grown and handling their emotions, which we talked a little bit about in my parenting podcast, are clearly not doing so, and are bullying and just saying really inappropriate things because they're behind a screen. Like, I would almost, because I'm like kind of in between like what I would say adults and like teens, because millennial, I would say adults are sometimes worse. I'm sorry, parents, but they are. They didn't grow up with like the same etiquette, like online social media etiquette. I feel like it should be a class now in school or something. I don't really know. I remember vividly getting into an argument with my mother, and she's going to listen to this and she's going to laugh, about using 3 dots, like the ... like after a sentence, because she was convinced that anytime I was doing that, I had like a crappy tone. I'm like, Mom. Or like if I used a period or it was like literally over punctuation. Okay. So anyway, I digress. Adults are kind of the worst. And if 59% of teens are being bullied, just imagine that statistic for any age group. And obviously no form of bullying is okay in any group over any situation. So let's just all collectively take a deep breath and agree to not engage in the trolls. Okay? Don't be a troll and don't engage in the trolls. All right. Last statistic. So just by reducing your social media usage, because I want to like leave something with you that's a little bit actionable. Just by reducing your social media usage to 30 minutes per day was proven to have a self-reported decrease in anxiety, in depression, in loneliness, and they literally wrote FOMO, which is fear of missing out. So like, okay, maybe their credibility is a little under question, but I totally agree with this. I find that when I'm utilizing social media less, that I'm less worried about what's going on outside of the world and can focus more on myself, and that's what we should be focusing on. So hopefully that was a little interesting, also a little sad. So let's maybe move into, I want to talk through how I use social media for good, because I think this is kind of inspiring, and these are things that I have picked up from influencers, right? It picked up from family and friends, and I just want to share them with you, and hopefully you'll find these useful. So this is going to sound cruel, and I genuinely don't mean it to be, and I'm kind of like telling on myself a bit. However, I do something that I call Unfollow Monday, and I have posted about it on my social media before. But I also do something which I haven't shared, and I unfollow people on their birthday. I know that sounds terrible, but hear me out. There are so many folks who I have friended, and this is obviously mostly for Facebook, that I have friended, and I don't remember you. I don't know who you are. Could have been some rando at a frat party back in college. Could have been somebody who, I met through pageants like over 10 years ago, who doesn't live in the same town as me anymore, who I've never engaged with their content. Not to say, okay, I'm not saying that like folks who I don't talk to frequently or I don't have value of them being on my page, because there are. But we all know that science lab partner from high school that like you literally they don't have anything of value that you're getting out of their social media, and vice versa. It's just time to call it quits, okay? I am not addicted nor care about my number of followers or friends. Really don't. If someone wants to be my friend because they're finding value in my content and they engage with my content, then like, it's cool, stay on, man. Like, that's great. But if it's also conversely, if it's someone who I see their name on their birthday and I'm like, you just post stuff that I don't agree with whatsoever, and I've tried to engage or I've tried to educate and it hasn't gone anywhere, or I just be like, our values are just like never going to align, unfollow. And they don't realize it because it's a birthday, and maybe they, they'll never find out, hopefully. I don't know. If you're one of those folks I've unfollowed on your birthday or unfriended, I am sorry. And if you want me to refriend you, I will. But just let me know. But that's just a way that I'm kind of managing, the folks on my feed. Okay. And then Unfollow Monday is just if on Mondays, 1 to 3 accounts that I can like recall being like, that's just like made me feel less of myself, or spoke badly about somebody else and it just like didn't spark joy. Unfollow. Okay. You can do it. The next thing I do is to combat the dopamine feedback loop, reward loop, is I don't have notifications turned on. And this is something that I realized that I did this prior to my first maternity leave with Everett. So like he's almost 4. So for 4 years now, my phone has been on silent. Okay, it vibrates for calls and texts, but it's otherwise silent. And I have no notifications for any social media platform. So you certainly can do it, because I was definitely one of those people. I found myself being really addicted to like the sound, to the vibration of a message. And as soon as I was able to like realize that, I'm like, it's not good. This isn't healthy. And I do not regret it whatsoever. There was actually a point in time where I had deleted the social media apps, if you want to go one step further. But then just being in pageantry, not to like make excuses, but there is a certain level of like social media aptitude and presence that is required. And instead of deleting it and like running away from the problems on social media, I just found ways to manage those problems better. So, but if you're having a hard time, then delete the app. Okay, so no notifications. I just find that I want to use my social media and to receive social media in ways that empower, encourage, and educate. So I don't engage in like negative funnels. I don't engage with the trolls. If I turn the other way. And that's something that I would encourage you to do. Next thing I would say is, if you can, pick like 1 to 2 platforms to be on and like let the rest go. I have a really good friend, Tess, who hasn't been on Facebook for years, and she's only on Instagram, and she's like, I never looked back. I'm like, dang girl, that's amazing. Again, I wish I could. Those are the 2 primary ones that I'm on. I got rid of Snapchat. I got rid of Twitter. Okay, so these are things that I have personally done, and I'm telling you, you can do it. An interesting stat, which I should have put in the stat section, but I thought this was cool. Not cool, kind of sad. Cool and sad. Gen Z and millennials have on average 8.5 social media accounts per user. You guys, that is crazy. Even just like So 8.5 accounts, if you're spending just 2 minutes on each of those, like that's just ridiculous. Okay. No one should have that many accounts, but I bet you do. I'm going to actually post a resource. Sorry, I've got one more and then I'll go into the resource. Okay. Be security conscious. So something that I didn't give much thought, and I'm glad that somebody else mentioned to me and or like I witnessed on some of the social accounts that I was following, is about being security conscious, not only for myself, like my own security, because like, sure, I'm a baddie, I can take care of myself, but like my kids primarily is who I'm worried about. Like even are your posts public or are they just between friends? Therefore, if it's just friends, are you being mindful of who you're accepting as friends? Just because you have mutual friends with someone doesn't make them not a real person. Like, because maybe those other friends just add everyone, right? Because they don't post any personal information on their social media, so they don't care. You really have to vet everyone that you're adding onto your network. Keep in mind that most stories are public, okay? And so be mindful of sharing like addresses, even like pictures of your home, and like, because people can pick up on like things and piece it together. Pictures of your license, like on your vehicle, the daycare that your kids go to, like if you're just like casually, like even events that you're going to that are associated with your daycare, associated with your work, that have the address, all of those things. If someone really wanted to like sit down and do the work, they could probably figure out like where you live and who you are and whatnot. So I'm just a call out to be careful. I went through at one point, I remember, and I did do an audit and I deleted as much as I could from like old pictures of homes and things that would be, too much information. But I'm just saying it can be done. So be careful. Okay. So what I was going to say is for the resource for this episode, I'm actually really excited about it. So it is a social media audit and time account and time audit. So I'll link it in the show notes, but also I'll share it on my social media. But essentially, and you can always find all of my resources on my website, www.bethelightcrownedition.com. It is a sheet where you will track like Monday through Sunday just for 3 weeks. I mean, you can do 1 or 2 weeks, like whatever, but it has space for 3 weeks, how much time you're spending on social media. And then it also has a check mark with the top, I think, 15 social media accounts. So like generally everything that you're using should probably be in there. And then you'll just like put a check mark of, oh, I logged into this one or I use this one. And it'll just give you a visual. And there's also a place to like take notes of if there are certain accounts or people who you're like, like I didn't love that, or that made me feel less about myself as a mom, or like whatever. You can kind of notate it. So I think it's one of my favorite resources I've built. So I really hope you go check it out. Okay. So now that I've talked through some depressing statistics and a little bit of how I use social media for good, we'll just move into the final segment today, which is how we will find the light and then be the light. So as a reminder, find the light section is for folks who are really just starting out, are not in a great place with social media and how it's affecting mental health, and just need some like quick win tips. That's what I'm going to share there. And then for the Be the Light section, that's more for folks who are like a little bit more advanced or comfortable in the social media mental health space, but maybe just want some tips and tricks to like build upon or expand, what they're already doing to protect their mental health. So I want to meet people where they're at, which is why I have 2 kind of separate sections for tips. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by the more advanced section if they're kind of at a beginner stage, and vice versa. So hopefully you find that helpful. Okay, so find the light. So it's kind of referencing a lot of what we already talked about in the episode, but turn off phone notifications. You can always just do it based on a trial, okay? So don't limit yourself. Just try turning off your notifications, even just for certain apps. Okay, I have them off for literally all apps, even mail. Even Slack for work. I mean, literally no notifications except for messages. And I would encourage you to try that for at least your top 1 to 3 social media accounts, and just like see how much time and space that frees up for you. Also, I want you to be thoughtful to think through how many times throughout the day are you like, oh, I haven't looked at Facebook lately, or oh, I wonder if I have any comments on that picture I posted. It'll be a little jarring on that self-reflection journey, and I just want you to embrace it and know that it's normal, but you may have some level of addiction to social media, as many of us do, so that's why I want to help. Okay, Steps 2 and 3 will be that resource that I'm sharing. So complete the social media time audit and the social media platform audit. So it is 2-in-1 resource. At the very minimum, do one or the other if you feel like it's overwhelming. But I really think that's a great place to start. You can do it from your phone. You can screenshot it and then mark it up, or you can be old school and print it out. I don't know, guys. I like pen and paper. Like all of my show notes, I use a pen. I use the crappiest old like pad that you've ever seen, like writing pad. I'm also left-handed though, so I really don't like using like binders and spiral notebooks. So if you're a fellow left-handed individual, then you will understand. Okay, so now we're going to move into Be the Light. So first, consider your social media presence and think through, does it reflect your brand? So what I mean by that is like, kind of ask yourself if you're one of the trolls. Just kidding. But kind of, right? Like that's something that I did recently, actually going through some workshops with both branding and with my pageant workshop. But it was, does everything that you post say to other folks, even how you're engaging? So like, do you just scroll social media and never like, never comment, never share when like a friend or a family member has done something really exciting? Because not doing stuff and like inaction speaks just as loudly as action. And I can speak from experience because even with starting this journey with my podcast, which is free, okay, which I think is pretty amazing, and I'm like really proud of the work that I'm doing. So many folks who like I barely know were just chomping at the bit to listen, to share, and all that. And then there are folks who I would consider like good friends or family who have hardly engaged with it whatsoever. And I'm not saying the podcast isn't for everyone, right? There is a certain audience, but there's a certain point where you need to be thoughtful that everything that you're doing reflects your brand. Do you want to be someone who is supportive? Do you want to be that hype girl or hype guy? Do you want to, encourage others in their faith and gently like correct folks if you see, certain behavior? What do you want your brand and your online presence to be? And just have every interaction reflect that. Okay. Even in like the pictures that you're posting, the stuff you're putting on your stories, like are we using foul language, or what kind of reels are we sharing? It's all built into your brand. And this is just an exercise to kind of think through. Are you representing yourself in the way that you want to? And if you are, good for you. Okay. We love someone who knows who they are. All right. All right. Number 2, if certain people or groups or certain apps, looking at you, TikTok, upset you or make you feel lesser than, unfollow. Okay. So definitely feel free to go and do the time and the social media audit if like that's something that you want to do, the platform audit. But this is a great opportunity to really think through. Like, I'll give you a good example. There is a community group for like DeSoto County, for the county that I live in. It's atrocious. It's literally the worst. And I actually just shared, I think, like the funniest, I'm sorry, and this shows my character, right? The funniest reel ever. Maybe I can find a way to link it for you. If not, it's on my Facebook. But it was like a reel making fun of like mom Facebook groups. And I can say that because as a mom in mom Facebook groups, it is like literally exactly sometimes what you see going on. And if it's not making you better, like you should leave. I'm also in a lot of like healing eczema groups, which have been educational, but almost more or equally depressing and like saddening to see kids who have worse eczema than my son, or like hearing like the disheartenment of like things not working. And it's like to the point where like I'm considering leaving some of those because I think I've gotten the help and the advice that I need, and it's just really bringing me down. Okay, so there's some good examples. All right, so that's number 2. Lastly, consider not just using as a highlight reel. Okay, so not using your social media just strictly as a highlight reel. Like, look at me, look how great and perfect my life is. Okay, that's fine. I know everyone does it. I post great photos. Just consider the impact to your audience, and like, I would encourage you to equally, or at least occasionally, post like some of like the realities of your life or your situation. Okay, it coming from someone who was not in a good mental state. And one thing that really triggered my postpartum anxiety and depression was seeing mothers who were like freaking killing it, and they never shared their kid ever cried, ever whatever. And it was just very disheartening for me. And I'm not saying it's their fault at all. And I don't want you to feel like I'm shaming you if this is something that how you use social media. I'm just asking you to consider, like, what value could there be in if you know that you have a general decent following, if like you were just real every once in a while. Like, I've got a friend from church who I really admire, and someone I want to become closer friends with. I just feel like she's killing it. She just had a baby. She has like 4 kids, I think. She homeschools. Just like, she's just a beautiful person inside and out. And a lot of her social media is like, she has this beautiful, like, white, it's like aesthetic home. And I paid attention one day to her stories, and she had a story where she was like very real and raw about today. She took a picture of like the dirty dishes, like that didn't get done, because this happened, and letting my kid watch screen time and she did like a time frame of everything. And I just thought it was beautiful. And I thought, like, what a great way to just show like humility in that we're all dealing with the same things. And that's just my encouragement to you, is that I found encouragement in that. Therefore, I know that if you do that, others will find encouragement in you. So I hope that was helpful. I am a big proponent and believer in utilizing social media for the good and being very protective of that headspace, and not only for ourselves, but like being mindful of those things as our children are coming into the age in which they might be utilizing social media. Thankfully, nowhere near that phase, but they are things that I think about. So we're going to go ahead and close in prayer, and then we'll move on to the next episode. Dear God, thank you again for this opportunity to talk through something that who would have ever thought would be such an important topic, and that is social media and its usage. And I know that because of the encouragement I feel from you every day and the work that I'm doing and in what I share, that social media can be used for good. It's such an amazing way to share the gospel, to share your story, and to share hospitality with others and help others in need. However, there is definitely an equally dark side to social media, which we have all witnessed and seen. And God, I pray that if there are individuals experiencing bullying or negativity from social media, that you will just wrap them in your arms and protect them and just guide them, Lord. Have the Holy Spirit just speak to them and show them ways to protect their heart and mind and use this tool for good. So I pray these things in your name. Amen. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.